Welcome everyone, my name is Jen Laskowski and I'm the Digital Experience Consultant here at Marigold. Today's session is eResources Troubleshooting Common Error Messages. This afternoon, we will be looking at each of the listed eResources, including Kobo's and Adobe Digital Editions, or ADE for short. We'll look at the common error messages that can occur and what we can do to troubleshoot them. We will also have time at the end of the presentation if you have questions. So with that, let's take a look at some error messages. There are a number of common error messages that occur across eResources and our devices. A lot of error messages will take you back to the basics of troubleshooting, but some do require more work than others to fix. While I will outline the steps you can take to resolve these issues, remember that sometimes we can only do so much, and we may have to contact an eResources Help Center to fully resolve an issue. So a lot of the error messages we see today can be fixed by you and library patrons. However, if you follow the steps and still have issues, then you can contact me and I will most likely have to reach out to the eResources reps. So let's start looking at some of these eResources. cloudLibrary can present some error messages to users, and some of the error messages are fairly self-explanatory, but some of them present a string of code, as you will see, that we have to decipher. Don't worry about memorizing all of the error messages that you see today for any of the eResources. I will be sharing a helpful links and tips document after this session, so you can use that to find all the information on the different error messages. The first message you might see actually has two variations, a request expired or a stream error. These two have the same solution. These messages will most likely occur if the patron is using an e-reader such as a Kobo or a Kindle. The first step is to check the ebook in. This may scare some patrons as they could be concerned if there is a long holds list. We want to ensure that people are receiving their holds, so be sure to remind your patrons that if they do have to check an ebook in because of an error message, that you will help move them up in the hold queue so they can still check out the ebook while it's their turn for it. Next, we have the classic troubleshooting step. We want to turn the device off for at least 30 to 45 seconds and turn it back on. Once that is done, they can check the ebook out again. If there is a long holds list, you will need to have them place a hold again, and you can move them up in the holds queue. If the issue still persists, make sure that the date and time on their device are correct. An incorrect date and time on an e-reader can actually cause a lot of errors, so it's important to make sure those are correct. Another error message that can occur when using an e-reader, also while using Adobe Digital Editions to read, is too many activations. This typically means that you have reached your limit of Adobe device activations, meaning you have too many devices using that particular Adobe ID. Patrons will need to fill out the Adobe reset form to reset the activation for their device. cloudLibrary submits this form on behalf of the patron. The patron's device and Adobe ID should be reset within 48 business hours of their request, and they can try using it again. This is important to remember because patrons will not receive a reply from Adobe with regards to their activation requests. Again, we have two error messages that have the same solution. If you receive a not ready or a bad device error message, they can be solved following the same steps. The first step is to uninstall cloudLibrary from the device. You will then want to turn it off for at least 30 to 45 seconds and turn it back on. Lastly, reinstall the cloudLibrary app. This should resolve the issue, but of course, as with any of these, if those steps do not work, we will have to reach out to cloudLibrary directly to fix the issue. The last error message you might encounter on cloudLibrary is a playback error for an audiobook. The first thing you want to do is click OK under the error message, just acknowledging that you have seen the error. Then simply log out and back into cloudLibrary. Patrons will be prompted to re-download the audiobook, and it should work normally after that. If the audiobook issues persist, library staff can contact me, and I will get in touch with cloudLibrary to fix the problem. So those are the most common error messages you might encounter on cloudLibrary, and as you can see, the solutions are fairly simple. We can sometimes panic when we see an error message, but now you can see that it can actually be very simple to fix. Libby is the mobile app for Overdrive. It provides the same content as Overdrive, and they are always making new enhancements and upgrading Libby to be more user-friendly. Libby doesn't have a lot of error messages, but one that patrons may receive is that they need to verify their library card. This often happens when they try to check out an item or place a hold. This one is very simple to answer. If they have tried verifying their account and are unsuccessful, the patron's account has most likely expired. So all they need to do is renew their library card. If patrons are having continued issues with Libby and can't find an answer on the Libby help page, we recommend filling out the Libby support form. Patrons should fill this form out themselves so they can provide as much information as possible, and it will put them in direct contact with Libby support. So that is a good note to remember. For those who use a Kobo e-reader and ADE to read ebooks, there are quite a large number of error messages that can occur. For today, I will highlight a few of the most frequent messages we have seen occur. We will be having a Kobo and ADE troubleshooting presentation in the future where we will cover this topic more in depth. But for today, we will just look at a few of the most common error messages that occur with Kobo and ADE. These error messages appear similar to cloudLibrary, so they are not self-explanatory like Hoopla was. This makes them harder to remember, but again, I will share helpful links and tips document after the presentation, so you don't have to worry about remembering all of these off the top of your head. The first error that can occur is a decrypt license key. This error is due to a known incompatibility between ADE version 3 and the platform's ebooks. So that would be Overdrive or cloudLibrary, for example. Patrons will need to install a different version of ADE. We encourage users to have the latest, most up-to-date version, but some people still do use an older version, so it's good to make sure it is the most current one so it works properly. The next error message that occurs is a database issue. This error message indicates a communication problem between the patron's device and the ebook warehouse where the book is stored, which again would be Overdrive or cloudLibrary. The first thing to do is check the Wi-Fi connection. If the Wi-Fi is working properly and the issue persists, a library staff member would need to contact me as there may be an issue with Overdrive or cloudLibrary being down. We would have to investigate further to see how we can solve the problem, as it may be something that Overdrive or cloudLibrary would have to fix. You might see a request expired error message. This error occurs when one or more settings on the patron's computer or device are incorrect, such as time, date, or time zone. To resolve this, patrons can check the settings to make sure they are correct and restart ADE. That should fix the issue, but if not, there may be other issues going on, and in that case, you could contact me to look into it further. An already registered error occurs when you are trying to open an ebook that has already been opened on an authorized device on a device that is not authorized. When you open an ebook on a different device, make sure they are all authorized with the same Adobe ID. Adobe is very particular about using the same Adobe ID, and this is why we often recommend that you use the same email address for ADE that you use for your library card. It just helps to keep things working smoothly. So make sure if you are opening an ebook on a different device that it is still authorized with your correct Adobe ID. A user ID in use error may occur if you have already activated ADE as an anonymous user, meaning you didn't log in with your Adobe ID, and are now trying to associate your Adobe ID with that anonymous activation. To fix this, you will need to create a new Adobe ID and use the new ID to authorize your account. This ensures your current content is still readable on your computer or device, but you may have to reauthorize your e-reader as well. An already fulfilled by another user error occurs when you are trying to open an ebook that has already been opened on an authorized device on a device that is not authorized. When you open an ebook on a different device, again, make sure they are all authorized with the same Adobe ID. You can see that a lot of these error messages result from not authorizing an Adobe ID or using a correct and incorrect Adobe ID, and that's why it's important to have ADE set up before accessing any ebooks with your Kobo and ensure that all your devices are authorized correctly. It can be confusing, so that's why we really want to make everything as simple as possible. Lastly, you might encounter this error message informing you that the ebook you are trying to open is protected by Adobe Digital Rights Management and cannot be opened with your Adobe ID. This error occurs when the authorization information on your Kobo e-reader and in ADE does not match. You will need to ensure that your Kobo device and ADE are authorized using the same credentials. Again, this is why I recommend using the same email address for ADE, your Kobo, and your library account, just to keep everything simple. You should also check the settings on your Kobo to make sure that the date and time are correct. As we said before, that can cause issues. Now, if the date and time are correct and you have reauthorized your device and reauthorized ADE, but the problem still persists, you can try factory resetting your Kobo device. But please keep in mind that when you factory reset your Kobo, all of the information you have stored on there is erased. Any ebooks you've downloaded, anything like that. This is why I suggest factory reset as a last resort. So as I said before, you can see that a lot of the error messages result from incorrect authorizations. They also have very similar solutions. ADE and Kobo are more complex than most eResources. So if you are interested in more Kobo and ADE troubleshooting, keep your eyes out for future training sessions as we do have them planned for later in the year. To learn more about any of these error messages or find more troubleshooting help, you can visit these websites. cloudLibrary and Hoopla are very straightforward, and you can find answers to your error message questions very easily. For Kobo and ADE, if you are having issues with specifically a Kobo device, we recommend that patrons contact Kobo directly, as they can provide all the information and talk with support specialists. It's very difficult to troubleshoot a device over the phone or via email when we can't have the device right in front of us. And that's why I recommend contacting Kobo directly, because they are the experts and that is what they can help with. The biggest thing with troubleshooting and error messages is just to remember that you may not be able to fix everything. Sometimes troubleshooting is more complex and we need to ask the experts for help. I will be sharing all of these links along with the recording of this session later this week, so don't worry about getting access to them right now, they will be shared. Thank you everyone for attending today. This session will be made available on Niche Academy within the next few days. Please feel free to contact me again if you have any questions, and have a great rest of your day.